Welcome. This is Leading with Spirit, the show that gives you an in-depth look at topics like what it takes to navigate your spiritual journey, how to heal yourself and grow your spiritual gifts, and balanced practices to expand your business and your spiritual leadership. I'm your host, Spirit Bird, shamanic teacher, healer, and author, here to guide you on your journey to becoming your most potent spiritual leader. Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm here with Laura Mazzotta. She is a holistic therapist of 20 years and Akashic Records channel, grounding you into sustainable confidence, emotional mastery, and deep intimacy. Laura is a devoted believer in the spiritual sovereignty, guiding you to define your relationship with God, the universe, your way to secure an unshakable foundation within yourself. Laura is also the author of Holistic Mental Health, Volume 1, and has Volume 2 coming out in spring of 2024. Laura, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the opportunity to connect and hear all about what you're up to. And I wanted to start with, you do a lot of different things, but I wanted to start with the Akashic Records. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about what that is and how you found it?
Sure. Yeah. So the Akashic Records came along after, I'll make a very long story short. I had sepsis about 9 years ago, almost wasn't here anymore. Very long road of recovery physically from that. Only got so far with the medical system. And then they told me that I was just going to continue to get worse. And there was really nothing else I could do. And I just didn't believe them. And so I started looking into my own healing modalities. I met with naturopaths and functional medicine doctors and became a Reiki master teacher. And then I stumbled upon the Akashic Records. And I was extremely skeptical because I was like, what is this? Just another, spiritual modality that somebody slapped a name on, right? But it kept calling to me. And so I started spending time in this space. And what it is it's really just a higher dimensional frequency. So we all have access to universal energy and we put lots of names to it. But the Akashic Records in particular, I really love because it's kind of like your spiritual home. It's a place to go that anchors you and holds you by all of your angels and guides or loved ones who have passed. And once you create a relationship there and you get really cozy and comfy, you can then explore source energy and other dimensions and things like that. And so I didn't understand any of this at the time. I would just start to enter this space because I was interested in physical healing. And without getting it consciously yet, I found the results spoke for themselves. When I was in that space, I would have zero symptoms. And when I would close the records, I would be super energized. And I remember my husband saying to me, I have no idea what you're doing and it makes no sense to me, but keep doing it because you're so much better. And I went into it for physical healing, but my anxiety went down. I was more confident than I'd ever been in my entire lifetime. And here I am, a therapist of 20 years, working with all these people and opening up to this literal new dimension of depth of understanding of ourselves and sustainable healing that was really lasting and building upon itself. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. And so that's when I said, I have to scream this from the rooftops. Let everybody know that this space exists because it's mind-blowing. And when you go into this space, there's a ritual to enter it. A lot of people who have meditated a ton and have experienced a lot of intuitive practice have probably been in the Akashic Records before, but it's basically like a big library. And when you go into this space, you take the book of your soul off the shelf, and it has all the information about your soul from the time it first sparked through past lives, current life, future lives. So it's like Google for the soul. You can ask any question you want and also just hang out there. Like, I don't like it that people think they have to go there and ask all these questions and get something done. Like, you can also just chill and attune to this higher frequency, which really attunes you to the frequency of your soul.
Yeah, that's great. Was that tricky or weird for you bringing that into your practice, bringing this work into your practice? As a holistic therapist, or were you just like so gung-ho about the results that there was no hesitation?
I think it was a mixed bag, like I was super gung-ho with the clients that I knew were receptive, like there were clients that were really receptive. And so I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, let's do it. And I would start to weave it in for a few years before I closed my traditional therapy practice. But, you know, there were also people who weren't as open to it. And just looking at the community at large, I'm like, all right, I felt a little bit like I was stepping outside of the spiritual closet. You know, I was like, all right, I have made such a good name for myself in 20 years in this community. And are people going to think that I've completely lost my mind? Right. So there's definitely some anxiety there with kind of like shifting my approach and saying, this is where I'm coming from now, you know? And I did that. I shifted my practice when it came to the point that everything that was coming out of my mouth was spiritual and energetic in nature. And I just didn't believe in mental health diagnostics anymore. And it just didn't feel right to continue that traditional role when it wasn't in alignment.
Yeah. 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 That's still a pretty big step though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so funny. Like they're so intertwined and they're such a beautiful marriage at the same time that they're completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I know quite a few therapists that are, oh, I know lots of therapists that would consider themselves deeply spiritual. And that seems to be a line that a lot of them walk with, like, to what extent am I allowed to / give myself permission to cross over this line? And am I crossing over this line? And so that's kind of a tricky space, but
oh yeah, I can't tell you the number of people who have reached out to me as therapists and they're like share your wisdom. How did you make this transition? Because that was my fear too, you know, all the ethical considerations and licensing considerations and everything, right? And just being really, really clear about the shift and what that looks like from a business perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So with records, besides the results you felt from them, you've been working with them for a long time now. I'm just curious, like, what do you like about them? Like, what is fun for you?
Do you have like 5 hours?
I know, I know.
Okay, so okay, I'm going to start with at the beginning, my favorite was ancestral healing. That was like my jam. So when I first started working with the records, it was really exploring my lineage and understanding the purpose that I'm meant to serve in this life for my lineage, and doing a lot of healing around ancestral patterns that have led to physical illness, that have led to other things that have become patterns in the family system. And then, you know, I've really shifted. Then I shifted kind of in the midst of it to allowing the Akashic Records to just be a gateway to source energy, like source creator energy, because source created everything, including the Akashic Records, including the universe, all of it. And so really becoming much more intimately connected to source energy and allowing that relationship to become more comfortable, intimate, natural for me. And that really allowed me to step more from this place of healing and understanding and creating a relationship to really stepping into my power and stepping into the bold voice that I'm meant to share and like my leadership, right? And I don't mean leadership in a business perspective. I mean in my own life, you know, like a leader as a mother, a leader as a partner, a leader as a friend, you know, and as a daughter. And so being able to bring that into just my embodiment in day-to-day life. And then, you know, it's really shifted to this space that allows more sensation to come online for me in my body. So when I enter that space, like the sensation of my body and what I can tune into becomes so expanded. And my consciousness has been expanding like a rock star, just being in that space and not going into it really with any intentions anymore. Now I go in there to just be deeply and profoundly loved on. And I love it so much because just by doing that, I receive so much more, you know, like I'll receive so many downloads and wisdom and things that I meant to share. But it's become this really beautiful, almost nonverbal exchange between me and the records, where it's all just an energetic transmission back and forth. And so for me, it's like the deepest, deepest sacred medicine to just enter this space and just be present with the energy and allow it to shift me as it will, whether I have conscious understanding or not. And it's truly otherworldly.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go to your first comment. I'm curious if you'll share what what do you feel like your purpose is regarding your lineage?
Yeah. So with my lineage, I think that there's multiple layers to it,
Sure.
but one is communication, really authentic communication. And, there's a lot of people pleasing in my family history. There's a lot of accommodating and overcompensation and some abusive patterns that existed. And so just being really, really raw and safe in doing so, like to be able to be safe and being the raw version of myself. And also at the same time, being able to tap into this very, very rich abundance that exists in my bloodline, right? Abundance of love, abundance of wisdom, abundance of wealth, whatever you want to call it, right? And so not looking at it as something that I have to change as much as that, I get to create new patterns and I get to benefit from the richness of what exists there, because it's so fertile, right? To dive into that. And so for me, it is about really sharing my natural voice. And what's wild is that my dad passed away about 9 years ago, and I've communicated with him in spirit form many times, but I was doing a meditation on my retreat led by one of the other facilitators last year, actually this year. And it was wild because what came through was that he works in the space of the Akashic Records, that my father works in the space of the Akashic Records, and that he was inviting me into this space to kind of, steward this in human form from what he's managing in spirit form. And I was like, oh my goodness gracious, this is so cool. I was like, I remember being in this meditation and having this like shock. I think I gasped out loud because I was like, oh my gosh, like I just wasn't expecting it. So it's really beautiful because clearly my lineage is very connected to that as well, which I really hadn't understood.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that where, so you like to talk and teach a lot about sovereignty, especially with the divine? I'm just curious if that follows that lineage too.
It does. It does. And I think that one of the reasons it does is because there was a lot of, I grew up in organized religion where a lot of us have, and really never fully felt at home there. And I actually was signed up to go to the seminary to be a Presbyterian minister. And I just kept getting pulled away from it. And I think that I kept getting drawn into the spiritual piece, but there were limitations around it, right? Like there were so many limitations around what that looked like and what I had to do in order to make sure that that was successful. Sure. And so I got a mix of experiences there because when I would be with my mother, my parents divorced when I was young. And so when I would be with my mother, we would be camping all the time. And I remember I never felt closer to God than when I was laying out under the stars. Never felt closer to God. And then I would be going to church all the time with my dad, and I'd be kind of confused, And so I felt like I had this kind of confusing idea of what spirituality meant to me and like who God was. And I had a lot of resentment towards God because of things I'd experienced in my life. And so I think that what I've learned and what I love teaching other people and learning from other people is how they uniquely connect with God, source, spirit, because I truly believe every single one of us could have our own religion and call it something different, because we're all different. Yeah, we're all completely different. And we all experience God energy very, very differently. And I realized how right before my dad died, he told me to write and to deepen my spirituality. Like right before, like a week before he died. And that's what I've done, and it's really cool because I've been able to create a path that feels much more accessible and customized to individuals rather than just like these standard approaches. And I just feel like it really enriches our lineage. We're passing this on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely relate to you there. And that's a place that I'm pretty passionate about, especially within the shamanic world, where there's like a lot of emphasis around tradition and like the right way, like what are the right words to use, what's the like steps, what is the ritual, what are the things that I say to do. And it's great to learn that and honor the tradition, but I'm also like, that's not how medicine it's not how medicine works. And that deep connection, that direct connection from spirit and then who you actually are, to me, is like where the medicine actually happens, where we actually heal ourselves from. And I feel like I run into so many people. I'm curious, you probably, I would imagine, run into this too, that actually have a really strong connection, but feel like they don't because it doesn't look like somebody else's. connection.
100%. I talk to my clients about that all the time. It's like, they'll even say, I don't really even know if the Akashic records are my thing. And I was like, who cares? Like, it's literally a gateway. It's an opportunity for you to just kind of have that holding space so that you feel safe and secure and held and loved, so that you can explore what you believe, right? Like, just let that be an anchor point to kind of hold you in spirit form, so that you can just like play. Connect with God, connect with source, connect with different dimensions, different galaxies, different civilizations in the stars, who knows, whatever you believe, and just start to play, let your soul play, and I just think it's so much fun when we're working with the infinite, and people make it so serious and so restricted. And it's like, this is so freaking fun, dude. Like, we're working with infinite energy. We get to, like, with every single human being I meet, I get to learn something new about the divine.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all expressed differently through each of us. And I think it's fascinating that we get to continually deepen our understanding of what's available to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big fan of the fun part.
Yes.
Like, that's usually
like, we take ourselves too seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and for me, it's like, yeah, I mean, like, yes to healing, but joy is definitely a part of healing. And there's also that space with like authenticity and spirituality that, I mean, everybody's got to navigate, or we all have bumpy spots to navigate. But yeah, there's this place where it's like, as soon as it becomes spiritual, it becomes like really serious. And it's like, actually, joy and fun is as important as anything else when it comes to spiritual work and self-healing.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of reverent irreverence.
Oh, I love that so much. Exactly. Exactly. And man, spirit and the universe, they love to play. Like, they have a great sense of humor, and they're going to communicate with you the way you communicate. And by the way, spirit sees everything you freaking say and do anyway. So you might as well just be yourself and ham it up. Like, there's no rules here. Like, I always say, like, if you have to hide standing in front of spirit, then like, who are you going to be yourself with? Because like, spirit can see anything.
So what has your interest these days? What's keeping you enlivened?
Oh, what's keeping me enlivened? Right now, at the time of this recording, I'm running an Akashic immersion program. I do that every couple months. And I'm just obsessed. I'm obsessed because we are doing exactly this. Like, we're just exploring the different dimensions, even dimensions beyond the Akashic records, and just play. And that's like my favorite thing too, is just to play with what's coming up in our human and like what's presenting to us at the same time that we have these desires to explore deeper layers of ourselves and deeper layers of the universe. And it's like, marrying those two together is just so yummy. And the other thing that I would say is enlivening me is my retreats. I love my retreats so much. And I want to do more and more of them. Like, that's my goal, is to kind of add more and more of them in, because being in in-person immersions and like deep relationship, and that's what's been expanding so much for me lately, is my business is so built on relationships, and the intimacy in human connection has just been expanding so much lately. And I'm so here for it. It's just beautiful to have that like tangible exchange here on earth that we know we can access in Mother Earth's energy and the divine realms, right? But like, being able to tangibly experience that and deepen intimacy with other people is just, what it does is it deepens belief in humanity. It deepens our belief in humanity. And that's been one of my biggest passions lately, is just deepening my belief in the collective at large, because we need that.
I feel you. There's something I've actually been noticing lately. And it's been showing up, like, it's not like a particular political side or anything. I think it's just like probably a byproduct of, our years of COVID mixed with the beautiful technology that's coming through. But what I've noticed is I've seen this pattern where a lot of people have kind of like a negative perception of humanity. And I definitely get being mad or frustrated.
Oh yeah.
But I've also noticed that a lot of it is they're actually just missing like the in-person, like like all of it is coming just from what we're consuming through technology and social media, which is an amazing tool. And I love having it. But when I run into that pattern where people are kind of like really stuck in this like one world view, a lot of times they're not actually just having conversations with other humans, even just at the post office or at the grocery store, just like talking to other people in real life. And I feel like giving yourself the chance to have that connection again and to approach it with at least the question, like, what if this could be good?
Yeah.
And you start to see like, oh, actually, there's a lot of really amazing things happening. And actually, there's a lot of people that actually I do relate to. And people are actually really open. And there's this whole other thing happening that we don't see when we're kind of like in our homes.
I agree. And I think it also comes down to curiosity, like just getting curious about other people and also getting really, really intentional about going out and find, like, there's billions and billions of people on this planet. I promise you there's people out there that align really beautifully with you. Right. And so it's like getting really intentional. Like for me, when I get to a point of frustration around, oh, I just like, I'm looking for this unique mix of X, Y, and Z. I just create it, dude. Like I'll create like a program for it, just like invite people in, or, I just get really intentional about it. And I think that, I think people don't realize how much they can create that in their own fields just by making that a sincere intention.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. This is what I want.
Yeah. And just being decisive about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. I'm curious with your retreats that you're dreaming into. Are you playing around with doing something different than what you're currently offering, or maybe just more of what you are doing? Tell me.
Yeah, I want to do more fun stuff. I'm so excited because I want to host one in Sedona. That's my next goal, is to host a retreat in Sedona. And then my ultimate goal is to host one in Kauai, because that's my favorite Hawaiian island. And I've been there multiple times, and it's the one vacation I never, ever, ever, ever want to return from. And the energy there is indescribable. So I would love to host that too. So those are my goals right now, is to host one in Sedona and to host one in Kauai.
Awesome. So it's kind of more about, well, at least the starting dream point is the location.
Yes, absolutely. Like the energy of the location, for sure. Because the thing is, for my retreats, we always end up understanding the vibration of what's coming in those retreats as we get closer. Mm-hmm. And really tune into the energy of the group. And I allow that to be channeled. And so like this last year, we did 5D consciousness, and we've done transcendent love. We've done intimacy. So, kind of depending on the mix of people and just what's being presented to us by spirit as to what is ready to be integrated, just collectively as well. Mm-hmm. We bring those in too.
Oh, it's fun. I like to play that way. So. Mm-hmm. So then tell me, you also offer a program called Vitality. Was that related to you healing sepsis, or is that something different?
It is actually a lot. I created this program for myself, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I did it for a number of reasons. I mean, one was for other people who continually hit their head against the wall after they work so hard trying to move through patterns physically or emotionally, or in relationship, and just couldn't get there in therapy or in the mental health system or on their own. And so I wanted to create something that was really novel and that filled in those gaps, but also the accountability. For me, I wanted accountability for my own practices. And so that's why I'm always going live with like customized energetic and spiritual practices in that program, in addition to the coaching calls and the one-on-ones, because it's kind of like going to the spiritual gym, And what I noticed too is that as I was healing, when I would have these dips in my health earlier on, the first few years of recovery, I would always be looking at like, okay, what do I need to tweak? What do I need to shift? What am I doing wrong? And what I learned is that I wasn't doing anything wrong, and there wasn't anything missing. I was simply being invited into deeper immersion into what was already working. And I was like, oh, I love this, because it's not about like, you don't have to keep looking for new modalities. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. What you're actually being invited to do is to take like what works for you. What works for you? Is it meditation? Is it tapping? Is it qigong? Is it like, what is it? And you choose that, and you immerse more and more deeply into that, because again, we're working with the infinite. There's always space to deepen this stuff, no matter how amazing and embodied we think we are, right? Like there's always space to grow and deepen. And most importantly, to deepen my surrender, to continually return to deepening surrender. And then I would do that. And then I get to the next level and I'd be like, I have to surrender more. Like, haven't I already surrendered enough? I was like, geez, oh man, how much more can I surrender? And they're like, infinitely. Right. Of course. So I love it because it's designed for sustainability, this program. And that's exactly what it does, is that, it really ingrains these patterns into the nervous system, into the energy field, into the mind. And you get to a point where the energy just pulls you along rather than you having to put so much effort in. And it's just been blissful. And I'm very, very proud of what Spirit's created through me, because it's just a gap that needed to be filled.
Yeah. There's a place that I understand and love how much discipline is like a portal to the divine, but that gets twisted a lot to like punishment or regimen. And you hear that all the time where it's like, well, I got to meditate five minutes a day. It's like, well, I mean, if that's serving you, but if it's actually just becoming your form of punishment, then you probably shouldn't do that.
100%. And that's why people say, that's why the energetic and spiritual practice is so different in that program too, because it's like, I don't meditate the same way every single day. Not at all. I do different spiritual practices. I mean, I connect every single day, multiple times a day, but I don't always sit down in intentional ritual, and it doesn't always look the same. And so I think it's also, that's the key for me too, is taking all of this like high level spiritual stuff that's fascinating, that we all want to dive into, and actually embodying it into your day-to-day life. And not in a way that's like, okay, this feels good, this makes sense, but this makes sense and I'm holding it and it's showing up and sticking in my relationships and my confidence and my self-concept, so that you're really anchoring it within you and making it fully integrated, so that we're not bypassing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just part of who you are. You can't not do it and be it.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. So you have a couple of cool trainings, and I'll definitely share your links in the show notes, but you have one that's about how to open the Akashic Records, correct?
Yep. That's a YouTube video. And I love that. Everybody loves that YouTube video. It's awesome because it teaches you about what the Akashic Records are and how they work. And then it'll take you into the records and teach you how to start downloading information and receiving messages.
Perfect. I know that you can use the records for pretty much anything. I'm curious if you've noticed with your experience, if there tends to be like a particular way or thing that comes up that calls people to them. Like if somebody's kind of feeling it, I know that should probably be enough, but have you noticed any kind of patterns there?
Yeah, I think one of the patterns is just an extremely scattered active mind, where they can't get out of the head. Another one is just like a very restless body, or a lot of repeating chronic physical patterns like pain or illness. And I would also say energy, like people who want to feel energized and just feel like kind of sluggish, or they're kind of very up and down, and they want to even out their energy more, is another thing. And some people just come because they want to just, blow their socks off with consciousness expansion. But I would say more people come to it with just like, I want to set clear boundaries and keep them in my relationships. And so they need to kind of know more who they are and trust more who they are, but they need to know who they are first, right? At a deeper level. And so I think that that's what ends up keeping them in their heads and going a million miles a minute and feeling like I'm like a runaway train. I need to stop.
Yeah, that makes sense. Super interesting.
Yeah.
And so you also have a meditation that people can access, and this is also with working with the mind.
Yeah, I love this meditation series. It makes me so happy. It's like my favorite meditations from programs that I've done. And some of these, so it's called Rewire Your Subconscious Mind. And there's 8 meditations in this series. And I think there's a couple of them are hypnoses. But it kind of goes from a self-trust to connecting with Mother Earth to connecting with your highest vitality. Some of these things are hypnoses and meditations that I recorded for myself during my own healing journey, because I really needed them to connect with and just continue my healing process. And so I've just incorporated them and given them in this free series. And I love it because we talk about rewiring subconscious patterns. And then you can also, there's an expanding your third eye meditation. So you can kind of go from the human all the way up to the consciousness expansion.
Oh, awesome. That sounds super exciting. And again, I'll share the links for all that in the show notes so everybody listening can get some of your awesomeness.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Laura, it's always a pleasure to connect with you. And I'm so grateful to know you and to see and hear your big voice out in the world, sharing your personal wisdom and what you're seeing and experiencing. Yeah, it's a delight.
Thank you so much. I love this chat. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. That is all for today. Bye-bye for now. Have you been hearing the call to expand your spiritual gifts and step into your next level of conscious leadership? If you're a coach, healer, or a spiritual leader, you can learn more about Shaman School and growing your spiritual business on our website, HoltonHealingArts.com, or send me a DM at Holton Healing Arts. Welcome to today's Member Query episode, where we explore questions about spiritual paths, intuitive gifts, growing a spiritual business, and shamanism. Do you have a question for us? Send us a DM at Holton Healing Arts. This is another question from a Leading with Spirit Facebook group member, and the question is, what's the difference between Reiki and shamanic healing? And great question. They're quite different, although there is often an overlap. So this is going to be a really reduced explanation, but in general, Reiki is a process of placing your hands on or slightly above somebody's body, and basically you're sending them universal energy. Again, that's a very simplified version, but the idea is that you're sending them like this universal sort of love energy that will activate that person's own healing response. Oftentimes Reiki practitioners in the process might intuit, they might get information in the same way that a lot of times massage therapists or any other body worker might get some information intuitively about what is happening in that person's body or system. Shamanic healing, on the other hand, again, this is very, very simplified, but with shamanism, like what the practice is that you're interacting with the essence or the spirit that is in all things. And so as a shamanic healer, what you would be doing is interacting with the spirit realm, interacting with the spirits, actually being a channel that connects the unseen realms and the spirit realms into this 3D world. So in that way, you're accessing sort of like this like higher power beyond human. And then as a practitioner, your job, instead of sort of like doing a thing and like just like letting it happen, your job instead is to be a guide for that person to help them see how where they are interacts with all of life, so that they can then make a conscious choice about what they want to keep, what they want to leave behind, what they want to process, what they want to call in, and where they want to move forward in their life. So in that way, shamanic healing is like a lot more interactive. Not that one's better or worse than the other, but where Reiki tends to be like, in my experience, more of like, come lay on a table and I'll do a thing for you. Shamanic healing is like really interactive, and should, like as a client, you should be a very big part of the experience, moving away from this idea that like the healer is somebody that just does a thing to you, and you actually get to be involved in your own healing process. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Leading with Spirit. If you did, please share the link for this episode with your biggest takeaway, tagging me at Holton Healing Arts. It would also support me if you subscribed and left a rating and review of the show so we can support more people living their highest purpose. Until next time, journey on.